Okay, let's make a very quick review. Let's suppose I give to you a chart like this. Well, what is the first thing we could think about? I wanted to give the equation that rules all those curves. And what could we do in here? Well, the first thing we would have to think is what makes y go y, this axis, right? What makes y go to infinity? Okay, what makes that goes to infinity? Usually, okay, it could be x goes to infinity, but I'm trying to find something like sine or cosine or tangent or cosecant or cotangent and so on. Okay, I'm trying to find something like this. So what should we think about it first? Well, we are going to think about the limit of 1 over x. Okay, when x goes to 0, oh, I'm sorry, this is going to be pi to pi and so on. Okay, pi to pi, this is going to be 3 pi and so on. Each part of that is going to be pi. Okay, now let's continue. It's going to be 1 over x. Why? Because when 1 over x, when x goes to 0, that it is going to be, it's going to tend to be towards infinity. Okay. Okay. Now, from that, where do we go? Let's go to our trigonometric circumference. This is going to be the sine, and this is going to be the cosine. Well, we also know that when x goes to pi, we also go to infinity. Now, we are at 0 and 2 over pi. At those two locations, we just bring our function to infinity, and actually, so far, plus infinity. So, that means that x is going to be 0, okay, or x is going to be pi. When we are in here and we got a 0, what does that mean? Well, we are talking about the sine of x, because sine of 0, it is 0, and sine of pi, it is also 0. Okay, so our equation that we are trying to find in here, that x, it is going to be the sine. Okay, so the first thing it is this. It's going to be something like 1 over the sine. Well, from here we get this. What is our first conclusion? Our first conclusion is going to be that between 0 and pi, our sine of x, it is always going to be positive. Okay, because all this area in here is going to be positive for the sine. Okay, now between 0 and pi, the sine is going to be positive. Therefore, the chart for that, it would be something like this. This is pi. Towards 0 and pi, it goes to 0, the sine. But if we just have 1 over the sine, it is going to be towards infinity. And let's see the signals. Why plus or minus infinity? Let's check that. Well, the limit of 1 over sine of x when x goes to 0, okay, but from the positive side. Okay, we're going through, let me try to take another pen in here. We're going from this end, from the positive, so we're going to put a plus in here. Okay, when I put 0 negative, it means I'm going to the 0 from the left. The plus means I'm going to the 0 from the right. Okay, so when x goes to the 0 from this position, that means that we are going to have the sign, it is going to be positive, okay? The sign, it is going to be positive, therefore it's going to be plus infinity. And when the limit of 1 over sine x, when sine goes to pi, okay, now from the left we're going to put a minus in here, okay, from the left in here. We have not yet reached pi. We are almost there, okay, almost. We are in here, but we are on the positive side, and the sign of x, it is still going to be, because x, it is going to be less than pi, the sign of x is going to be still positive, and therefore this is going to be a plus infinity. Well, the first part, it is done. Oh, and this is always 1, okay? Why? Because 1 over sine of x, let's make x equals 0 and x equals 1. It doesn't go any further than that. When x equals 0, 1 over 0, this is going to give us infinity. And when x equals 1, okay, we're going to have 1 over 1. I mean the sign, right? 1 over 1, and this is just 1, okay? Let's just ignore this, okay? Let's just put a function like this. It's faster when it's 1 over x, okay? X can be 0 or can be 1. It cannot be anything other than that. And that's why the least possible number, it is going to be 1 here. Well, this is the first part. Let's go to the second part. We have done this one. Let's see this one. Okay, now we are moving to the third and fourth quadrant. Okay, because now we're going to get into the negative side of the sign. This is going to be less than 0 for the sign, okay? Remember, we are analyzing only the sign in here. Now, here, the sign of x is always going to be negative. Okay, now, between pi and 2 pi, the sign of x, it is always going to be negative. Let's exploit that. Now, the limit 1 over the sign of x when x equals pi, but now pi from the right, from the positive side, okay? Pi through the right, okay? Through the positive side, meaning it's pi and something else, okay? That's what it means. We are in here, okay? Well, it's almost 0, right? But it's almost 0, but still negative, okay? So the sign of x, it is going to be negative. X, it is going to be greater than pi, but practically pi, but a little bit over than pi, okay? We passed pi, so the sign is already negative, and now that is why we're going to get something. It's just like this, 1 over minus 0, if I would say, okay? And this is minus infinity. And now let's see the limit when x equals now 2 pi. But now the 2 pi, we are going from the left, okay? We are in here. It's not yet 2 pi, it's almost 2 pi, okay? Now from the left, it is going to be a minus 1 over the sign of x. Now our sign, our x, it is going to be less than 2 pi, and the sign of x, it is going to be negative, because look, we are not at here. We are almost at 0 or at 2 pi, but the sign, it is very small but still negative. So it's just like 1 over minus 0 and again negative infinity. And what does that bring to us? That brings to us this information in here. Well, this is going to be our chart. Okay, this is going to be 1. Okay, and our chart is going to be this. It's going, okay, towards pi, and to pi we're going to have, this is for pi, it goes minus infinity in here, and towards 2 pi it is also, okay, from, you see, from the left and plus from the right, and therefore it's going to be something like this. Okay, now that is why our chart is going to be this. So it's perfectly clear now to realize that our function in here, it is just going to be 1 over the sine of x. Okay, and this is nothing more than the cosecant, okay, of x. Okay, nothing else. So that is the answer for this question. Okay, and this is going to be page 1.